On Shavuot, we celebrate the giving of the Torah by God to Moses over 3,000 years ago. The Rambam, in his 8th principle of faith, explains that we are to believe that the Torah scrolls that we have in our synagogues today are identical to the Torah that Moses received from God 3,000 years ago. So much so that every word that is found in our Torah scrolls is to be found in the Torah that was given to Moses 3,000 years ago. And, continues the Rambam, every letter is packed with meaning. This principle is so critical to the Jewish faith and to the Jewish people that if someone does not accept this principle of faith, he is deemed a heretic, has no place in the Jewish people, has no place in the world to come, and is a danger to the Jewish people and must be shunned. But there's a problem with the Rambam's principle, because we know that the vicissitudes of time have done their damage to the transmission of this 3,000-year-old document. We know this not because of modern scholarship, and we know this not because of archaeological evidence. We know this because it has been said so in our very traditions, in our very works of literature that have been handed down for over 1,000 years and more. In the Midrash, it says that there are dots over certain letters and certain words. And the Midrash goes on to explain the meaning of these dots and these words. But the Midrash then concludes and says, really those dots were placed by Ezra the scribe to mark words that he wasn't sure if they really are part of the Torah. And he explains that when Eliyahu Navi comes at the end of days to redeem the world, and he asks us, why did you include these words in the Torah? So we'll say, we weren't sure, but there's no problem. There's dots over them. We'll just erase the words. And if he says, how did you know this word was included? Well, we'll say, we thought they were. They're part of our transmission, and we'll erase the dots. But now we have here a discrepancy of words. The Midrash says that there are 10 such places in the Torah. What are we to do with the Rambam's principle of faith, that every word is identical to those words given to Moshe on Sinai over 3,000 years ago? But that doesn't end there. There's a Gemara that explains that we are no longer expert in vowelizing the words of the Torah. We are not sure where the Vav is placed and where the Yud isn't placed. And so there are many words that have letters that are in discrepancy. What are we to do with the Rambam's principle that says that every letter is packed with meaning? And it doesn't end there. The Gemara Yushalmi brings a case where they found in the Beit HaMikdash 3 Torah scrolls that each had a word that was in dispute. So the rabbis all brought Torah scrolls that they could compare with, and they decided which was the right version by majority rule. Majority rule is not an objective way of determining the truth. It is a method that humans who are prone to err use because that's the best method that we have. So here we have 3 cases from classic Jewish literature which call into question the Rambam's principle of faith. But the Rambam knew all of these sources. So why did he write his principle of faith as such? The answer is approach. There are 2 approaches to the Torah. Either it's divine or it's man-made. The reason is because if we say that there are some discrepancies that we really don't know if they were put in there by men, if they're just mistakes, if they're the result of the vicissitudes of time. So whenever we start reading the text and we run into some kind of a problem where we don't really understand, we're having a hard time interpreting the text, so we'll just wave our hands and say, scribal error. vicissitudes of time. And we'll throw out that difficult passage. And we'll do it over and over and over until we'll throw away the whole Torah. And so that's why the Rambam said we need to relate to this entire Torah as divine, every word. And that's why the Midrash, when it explains the dots over the words that it's not sure about, it doesn't tell us why. It doesn't tell us why these dots were placed there by Ezra. It starts by explaining the meaning of those dots and the meaning of every word that those dots denoted. And at the end, it tells us, and by the way, we're not sure about these words, but we're willing to wait for Eliyahu Navi to come and tell us if they're really part of the Torah or not. However, if we start from the other way around, and we start with all the discrepancies and all the unsureties, well, we're not going to be around to accept those corrections from Eliyahu Navi. And so that's why the Rambam worded his principle as such. It is a fundamental principle of faith that the entire Torah, every word, every letter, is divine. Chag Matan Torah Sameach.